Hi, it's Candy Sugarman and
Hunter Elliott
of rangehot.com.
We're going to do our joint finalization of the review of the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield EZ and 9mm. That's a mouthful, right?
It is.
But before we go any further, I do want to show you that the 8-round detachable box magazine is out. I've locked the slide to the rear. I've ensured the... Is she cutting up on camera?
I'm good. Okay.
I've locked the slide to the rear, and I've ensured the chamber's empty so we know this gun is safe to talk about. However, I'm going to continue to keep it pointed in a safe direction. If you've made it this far, I certainly appreciate it. Bless your heart. Please consider liking and subscribing.
I'm also going to suggest that if there's a woman in your life that is interested in shooting, does shoot, or really has issues, wants to shoot but has issues racking the slide, you're going to want to share this video, and you'll see why in a little bit.
You've got 3-dot sights. The rear is drift adjustable with a set screw, single white dot on the front sight. Not bad at all. I like the sights. Molded into the polymer dust cover is a Picatinny rail for whatever accessories you deem necessary. Coming here to the trigger. The trigger's got right much take up, but then it breaks pretty crisp at 4.5 pounds and almost no over travel. Now the reset on that also is pretty quick, so you don't have a lot of throw on that trigger for your follow-up shots. For the port and starboard side of the grip area and the front strap, it is nicely textured. Coming here to the rear, it's got some texture, but it's also got a grip safety. Now in my mind, this grip safety is upside down because I'm a 1911 guy, and I like to see that grip safety depressed from the bottom. However, this one depresses from the top. It functions just fine. I'm going to note that a few people complained a little bit about it becoming uncomfortable under extended periods of time shooting. I did not find that the case, but you know, we got a lot of different folks shooting this pistol, so I try to keep in mind their opinions. Now, this model does have an ambidextrous thumb safety. However, you can be had without that. This pistol is not striker fired. It has an internal hammer. We probably got about 400 rounds down range through different types of ball and defensive ammo. Didn't have any kind of malfunctions, misfeeds. Accuracy wise was about what you expect, 2.5, 3 inches at 25 yards from a rest. But Candy, if you would, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with the gun and that sort of thing?
So I will say that a number of years ago at gunpowder gal meetings, you know, everybody brings their guns, we go shooting at the range, and this woman brought this, and everybody was very excited. Now, here's the thing. It's no secret that some women have issues racking the slide. And before you start in the comments, I'm going to tell you, yes, I've trained hundreds of women how to rack the slide, how to make it easy. And there are some women who just can't, whether it is because they have physical limitations. Sometimes I have women who are elderly. They just don't have that.
And that could apply to men as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've dealt with women who've had, you know, very little teeny tiny hands, and they just cannot rack the slide. Now, I can also hear in the comments before they're there is, well, then, you know what, you should just get her revolver. If she can't rack the slide, get her a revolver. And again, I'm going to say, with 15 years of gunpowder gals and women coming in, there was always this woman who would come in to shoot, said, you know, my son, my father, my brother, you know, my husband gave me this revolver and said that I should be able to shoot it, that it was easy. And you know what ended up happening? They hated it. They hated shooting it, which meant they were never at the range, which means they didn't have the experience that they needed should something happen. So for those reasons, what I'm going to say is, if you have someone who is having issues racking the slide, has some physical limitations, this is a great gun for them. If nothing else, it helps build that muscle memory of being able to rack the slide, and they might be able to, I'll say, graduate up to something that's a little bit more. Now, I will tell you, this gun's okay to shoot. I personally would never buy it. It feels insubstantial, maybe a little bit, to shoot it. It just, there's not that heft that I like. Now, for concealed carry, and again, that's 8 rounds and of course 1 in the pipe, but it's very bulky. And it
is a little lower. Yeah. Now, you glossed over something.
Okay,
that's okay. Why is this pistol ideal for people that may be struggling to have to rack the slide?
Because it racks so easily.
The easy part of it.
Yes.
It's probably about, would you say, about half the effort?
I would say that it is absolutely like a minimal effort. we all went around and racked the slide, and everybody was like, oh my gosh. Several women actually went and purchased this particular gun after doing that because they were so relieved how easy it was.
Smith & Wesson achieves that by using a lighter recoil spring. Now, not to get into the weeds on this, but real quick, let's remind everybody, don't freak out when you're hearing it's got a very light recoil spring. It ain't going to beat the gun up any worse than if it had a stronger recoil spring in it.
Additionally, magazine release, very easy. I know that there are a lot of probably men out there who would think, well, of course, magazine release, that's easy peasy. But I cannot tell you the number of women that I have worked with who just had an issue with the magazine release.
And it's in the traditional spot right here. And another part of the EZ system is, now the magazine spring is also doesn't have as much tension on it, but you got two little tabs here, very reminiscent of the old 22 caliber handguns, where you can grab your fingers here, you can pull that follower down, so you're not having to depress the follower with the ammunition you're loading, which would make it easy for someone that's new to loading magazines, or maybe lacks a little bit of hand strength, and kind of get them trained up on how to load a magazine. And this pistol comes from Smith & Wesson with two magazines. So you've got one in the gun and you got one in your back pocket for a spare if you need it.
If you've got a woman or someone else in your life that's having an issue, whether it's mobility issues, age, whatever the reason, and they can't quite rack that slide, they do not want to consider or they don't like revolvers, I highly recommend this particular gun.
So it field strips just like any of the other M&P line. You pull the slide to the rear, you rotate the takedown lever down. I'll show you here on that. And then the slide itself just comes right off. You don't need to pull the trigger. However, something to bear in mind is once you reassemble it, you do not want to be depressing the grip safety, because you see it's got a little finger there. So whenever you go to put it back on, don't be depressing the grip safety. Pull that slide, and that's a little tricky.
Yes.
Pull that slide all the way to the rear, rotate that grip safety, and then that's how it's field stripped.
And I will say that if someone who purchased this does have issues with hand strength, that's going to be an issue. It's not an easy thing to do. And I've seen women, especially women who have little tiny hands, struggle to be able to, do what they need to do in order to take that apart.
A lot of folks that shot this pistol really liked it. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my speed.
Right. And the last thing I would say is there's not a lot of aftermarket upgrades that you can.
If you're just looking for a utilitarian tool that's easy to use, there's nothing wrong with this M&P line and the EZ as well. So anyway, that's about all I got.
Me too.
I want you to take care of yourselves and each other. I look forward to seeing you at the range.
Bye.